Yo guys, JJ here, back with another episode of how to make an inventory system in Unity 5. I am sorry for the lack of videos lately, by the way. It's just been really hectic here. I've not had a lot of time to record, so sorry about that. But we're back with another episode, so at least that's good. So what are we gonna be doing in this episode? A lot of you guys wanted to know how to do this, which I've been wanting to show you, but it's like had no time. So what are we going to do? We're going to be making it so that you can drop and pick up objects. So how do you do that? Well, first off, I'm going to be changing a couple things so that we can do that. So I'm going to go into the FPS controller and go to sensitivity, because my mouse is just, I have to like pick up a mouse every time I want to turn. It's like so much moving, and I want to have it like a lot less because it's not as sensitive as I like it. So I'm just going to change this mouse sensitivity to 5 and the X and Y, and then I'm going to go to the first person character and change the field of view. This is like a little like cramped and cluttered, so I'm going to just change it to like 75. Let's see how that looks. So yeah, I like this. This is nice. Okay, so now that that's done, we're going to go into the game controller, and we're actually going to change a couple things. We're actually not going to change anything, we're going to add some stuff, because I'm going to save that. Okay, so in here, what we're going to do is we're going to just add the start function back. So void start. Okay, so what are we going to be using this for? Well, we actually need to add the ability to open the canvas. Actually, it's not like an ability. It needs to be opened and closed very fast at the start of the game, because the way we're going to pick up the objects, we won't be able to pick them. They won't go into the inventory unless the inventory has at least been opened once. So if you start the game and you haven't opened your inventory yet, and you walk into an item, it won't put it into the inventory. It'll put it like right in the hierarchy, just general, because it can't find the inventory. But once it's opened once, it's all set. So a way to do that, all we need to do is open it for like a 10,000th of a second. So not really any time. You don't even need to. You're not gonna even see it on the screen. So how are we gonna do that? So first off, we're gonna out of there. We're just gonna make a public. Oh, not public. If I can type today, public. Yes. And this is gonna be enumerator. Actually, yeah, enumerator, and this is gonna be called time. So inside this time, we're going to put a couple of things. So actually a couple things. So the first one's going to be yield, return new, wait for seconds, and how long. So how many seconds do we need to wait? Well, 0.0001 f. So since this is a float, we need to add that f at the end, or else it will throw an error saying it's not defined as a float or a int. So after that, what we need to do is we need to take this part right down here where it says canvas game object set active true, and copy that and paste it in there, and just set this back to false. So this is all good. And now in the start, we're going to declare it. Actually, first need to paste that back and make it true. So it opens, and then it's going to close after that much time. So 10,000th of a second. So after we make it true, we need to say start coroutine. And what coroutine is it going to start? Well, time. There you go. Time is the coroutine. So that's all set. You just save that, and you won't even notice when you play it. It opens and closes, and you didn't even see it. So you do notice that this hierarchy updates really quick. So, but you don't see it like open and close at the same time. It's just like instant. See, it flickers right then. That's all you'll see. But that's just enough time for this inventory controller to start, to throw its start command. Okay, so that's out of the way. Now what we need to do is we need to create a game object. So we're going to just create an empty object, call this copper ingot. Make sure it's exactly the same thing as your prefab that you have. So copper ingot's exactly the same, space and everything. So copper ingot, we're gonna add a couple things. So the first is gonna be called a the first is gonna be a sprite renderer. So right down here, and the sprite, go to sprites, actually let's script sprites, copper ingot. And it's super big, oh my gosh. So we need to change the scale. 1.14 tab 1. Actually 0.14, and then by 0. Okay, then we have the sprite renderer. So how far is it away? This is actually perfect in size. So we play it, I'll be able to see. So that's how big it's going to be. We're going to add the ability for it to use gravity, so it's going to fall to the ground. And once it hits the ground, it's going to stop falling. So it's going to collide. So we need to add two things. A rigid body. Make sure it's not 2D, because we need to use the X, Y, and Z position. So we're going to freeze these rotations before we do anything else. That's all good. Everything else is fine. And then we're going to add the box collider. And this is going to be 4x4x0. It's perfect. Okay, so we could use a 2D giving by the axes we use, but we can't use it because for some reason the 2D won't collide with the ground. It will just pass right through it. It won't stop. So if we play it right here, and you'll see that it hits the ground. So it stops at the terrain. But as you can see now, we can push it. So we can push it along, which we don't want that. We wanted to make it so that we can walk right through it. So a way to do that is to turn trigger on, which that makes it so that you can walk right through it. It'll pass right through collidable objects. But what that means is that it'll fall right through the terrain. So we don't want that. So the way to fix that is to change these settings in code. So we have to turn off gravity, turn on is kinematic, turn on is trigger, and then once it's in the air, when it's not colliding with anything, then we'll turn it back to the way it is now. So just gravity on and everything else off. So the way we need to do that is we need to add a component, a new script, and this is going to be entity. Oh, that's not how you spell entity. There we go. It's going to add it, and then we just go and drag it into the scripts folder. There we go. And we'll just open it. There we go. Just open it up. And here we go. So I'm just going to zoom in. There we go. So now what we need is we don't need the start menu at all, but we do need the update. So first off, we're going to add a couple of variables. So the first one's going to be a private, and this is going to be a boolean, and it's going to be isTrigger. There we go. The next is going to be public, and this one's going to be game object of type game object. It's going to be named player. Player. And the third one is going to be a public, and this is just going to be the inventory controller. So okay. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to just delete this. Oh, too much. So now I'm just going to add all the functions. So first one's going to be a void. It's going to be a on trigger enter. And inside here, we're just going to do collider. leader. Oh, two L's. And trig. Okay, the second one's gonna be void on trigger exit. And this one is gonna be exactly the same. Collider trig. There we go. And the third one is going to be a void on collision. Enter. And collision. Col. And now that we got all of those, we can just space them out. So these are the 4 things we're going to be using. So then the first one, on trigger enter. Actually, we're going to start with the on collision enter. So the on collision enter, we're going to just put an if statement. So if the call dot game object dot name is equal to terrain, there we go. See if I can spell right. Okay, so if it's equals to that, then we're gonna do this. We're gonna change these right here. We're gonna change these attributes. So what we need to do is we need to say game object dot rigid body and then game object dot box collider. So game object dot get component. So start with a rigid body. Rigid body and dot. So what was the first one? I believe it's is gravity, or yeah, use gravity. So use gravity equals false. Okay, so use gravity equals false. And then the second one, let's just scroll down here. So game object dot get component, and this one's gonna be another rigid body. And this one is kinematic. There we go. And this one equals. Okay, so if it's terrain, we want the gravity to be false and this to be true. And then the is triggered to be true. So this is gonna be game object dot get component, same thing. But this time it's gonna be box collider. And that is trigger equals true. Okay, so that's all that we need. And then actually what we need to do is else if space here. So else if the call dot game object dot name is equal to null, then what we're gonna do is we're gonna say the is trigger is equal to false. So that's the boolean we declared up here. So we're just gonna make that equal to false, and that way, so if this isn't true, the is trigger is obviously false. So we just say is trigger equals to false, just to make sure that once we're not touching the object, that it returns back to its original attributes. So what we're gonna do here is actually we're gonna just go back into update, and we're gonna basically do the opposite. So this is gonna be if is trigger is equal to false, then we are going to say the same exact things but the opposite. So copy those, paste them back, and just say true, false, false. Okay, and then at the bottom here, we're gonna make sure that we set isTrigger back to true. Okay, so that way it doesn't keep looping through this and keep setting it to true, false, false, true, false, false, and then keep doing that over and over again. So we just want to make sure it gets set back. So now in the on trigger enter, so we're gonna do this. So if trig dot game object dot name is equal to FPS controller. FPS controller. Oh, we need to make sure we have quotes around that. There we go. So if it's equal to FPS controller, then what are we gonna do? We're gonna say that. So this is gonna be a new function that's in inventory controller that we're just gonna declare here. So we're gonna say inventory controller dot add item, and that's just going to be a new function, a new method that we call from in here. We haven't declared it yet in inventory control, that's why it's showing up red. So new item, add item, and the name is going to be, okay, so add item, okay, then it's going to be this dot game object, actually this is going to be game object dot name. Okay, and close that. Okay, so I'm just gonna really quickly add that at the bottom here in inventory controller. So right here. So say public void add item. Okay, and right here we're just gonna take a string, and it's gonna be iname, item name. Okay, we're just gonna save that, and over here it's gonna fix itself. So save this too, and then we're gonna just say this. So game object dot destroy, oh, wrong game object, game with a capital G dot destroy object. It's gonna be this dot game object. Okay, that should be good for there. And so now on the in trigger exit, or on trigger exit, all we're gonna do is just say this. So if it exits a trigger at all, which you can say is trigger equals false. And that should be it for this one. So we're just going to save that and see what happens in the game view. We shouldn't get any errors, which is good. We didn't get any errors. If you notice, once it hit the ground, is trigger automatically ticked on, and also is kinematic. So now we can just glide right through it. But yet we can't pick it up yet. So it doesn't delete the object yet. And the reason for that is because, it doesn't have these two things, so it won't, so it'll just throw an error. Cannot be set to an instance of an object because it hasn't been able to pass this inventory controller, so it can't go down to the bottom before it uses this. So what we need to do is we need to just set the inventory controller. So right here, inventory, actually it's just the inventory. So now copying it and drag the inventory over, and then we're going to drag our FPS controller over into game object. Okay, and now we hit play. We shouldn't get any more errors, and it deletes the object. So now where does the object go? It hasn't created yet because we haven't done the function here. So now that we got it deleted, it should send the name of the object that was deleted, which was the copper ingot. So now all we need to do here is say, well, first we're going to declare a game object. So the game object, and this is going to be called current item. Okay, so that should be good. Now what we need to do is we need to say for loop. So for I, or int I equals 0, and then I is less than, oh, we haven't created this yet, so we have to actually go up here first, and right below where this is a boolean, so we're just going to say public. This is going to be another game object, but this is going to be game object array. So this is going to be items. So this is going to be the array full of all the items in the game. But for now, we're just going to use the copper ingot. So if it's less than items s dot length okay, then I plus plus. Okay, so after that we're gonna say, we first need brackets here. So after that, what we're gonna do is we're gonna say, so if what is it? Okay, so if items I dot name is equal to I name, then what we're going to do is we're going to say after that we are going to create an instance. So this instance is going to come from the items array. So current item equals game object instantiate, and the items number I, which is the number we got from here, then okay, so I is transform dot position. So we'll fiddle around with this later. This will actually be where this item spawns in our actually this right here is gonna be fine, but later on when we want to drop the item, we're gonna have to fiddle around with this instantiate object because it's gonna be throwing it into the game world, and this is gonna be where coming out of the player. So we gotta change that when we do that. So and then the quaternion dot identity. Okay, so this is all set, and then we're just gonna, there we go, close it off. Now what we need to do is say current item dot name equals iname, because sometimes sometimes the instantiate will actually, well, actually most of the times it'll use a name, but then it'll add clone to the end. So we don't want the clone, we just want the full name. So that's why we're taking this name right here that we get without the clone and setting this object to that name. So after that, oh, we need to end it. There we go. So after that, what we need to do is we need to set the current item not set parent, actually game object dot set parent, Actually, before this, I forgot we need to do inventory sorting. That way, it will sort the inventory and find the slot that you can put it in. So then after that, we're gonna say current item dot this is dot game object dot current item game object, and then this we're gonna say dot set. No, actually, it'd be dot transform dot set parent. There we go. To sort slot. And then after that, we're just gonna say current. Actually, sort slot. Not current item. So current item dot transform dot position equals vector3 dot 0, and that should set it. Actually, I don't even think we need the game object right here. Yeah, we don't even need that. That's good. Okay, so now we just play and see if we get any errors. We shouldn't get anything. Okay, we're just gonna hit play, and now it should throw it into our inventory. So if we open it, okay, so it didn't. So how do we fix that? Okay, I'm just gonna check something real quick. Okay, so I found out what it was. So it was nothing to do with the code. The code was all fine. It was totally fine. It was actually that in the inventory controller itself, we forgot to add the items. So make sure you go into the inventory and the inventory controller, and then just right where it says items, just go to the prefabs and drag the copper ingot into the items, and that will fix your problem. So it was trying to create it, but there was nothing that it could create. So now we can just go to canvas. Actually, we can just open our inventory, and we see that it opens, it drops it in there. Here, I'll try that one more time. So I'm just gonna play it one more time and open our inventory. Actually, switch these around. Move this around there, somewhere out there, and then we're just gonna run into it. See, it pops right there. Perfect. And now if we go into your inventory, go to slots, slot 1, we see that actually, see, it doesn't have the clone at the end, which is good. It just has copper ingot, so no clone, which is what we want. It's awesome. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna add the ability to drop items. So how are we gonna do that? So first off, what we're actually gonna do is we're first gonna make this copper ingot a prefab. So create folder entities. Okay, and just drop that copper ingot in. So as you see right here, it doesn't carry over the player and the inventory controller. So what we had to do is in the code, we actually have to bring the start menu back. So void start. Okay. And so what we need to do is reference the player and then reference the inventory controller. So the player we can reference in the start menu, but the inventory controller itself we have to actually reference in the update function, because the start only gets registered the first frame, and because the inventory is actually in this canvas and it's disabled, it won't carry it until the game controller turns it on and turns it off. So it won't carry it at all. So what we need to do is say the game, actually player, equals game object dot find capital G, game object dot find and find FPS controller. There we go. Controller, yep. And then just close that up. Okay, so that's good. That'll find it perfectly fine. Now in the update function, what we need to do is actually an if statement. So if the inventory controller equals null, meaning if this inventory, if there's nothing in there, if there's no object that it found, so if it's null, we need to find it. So what are we going to do? We're just going to do inventory controller, lowercase, equals game object dot find object of type, capital game object, again, dot find object of type, inventory controller with a capital I. And just parentheses and close it out. So this is perfectly fine. That's all we need in here. So we can actually just save this, and what we can do here is we can go to the copper ingot and just test this. So we'll just take this FPS controller and go up here to none, and the inventory up to none. So what we should see is when we play it, it should find both of those. Yep, FPS controller, inventory controller. Actually, none. Okay, so with the inventory controller, we need to make it find it. So, okay, game object, find object of type, inventory controller. Oh, that's why. So if inventory controller is equal to null, I put 1 equals, so that was it making it equal null. So it was never. It's actually, it shouldn't have registered. It should have thrown an error. I don't know if it didn't. No, it didn't. Okay, that's weird. Wait, did we save that? Yes, we did. Okay, so now we hit play, and it should find both of those. Yep, inventory controller. So what we should be able to do is should be able to pick up this object, and we are. Okay, that's good. So now what we need to do is we need to go into the inventory controller and add a new function. So right down here, we're just gonna say void drop item. Okay, takes nothing in because it doesn't need anything. It's already in the referenced in here what it needs. So now all the way at the top, right where it says input get key left shift. So right above that, we're gonna actually do another if statement. So, oh, well, what is that like that? Okay, so if input dot get key, and this is gonna be key code dot, let's say Q. So if it gets the Q button, that's going to be the drop key. We can also add the abilities. So like if we want to just like throw it out, if we open the inventory, if we just drop it out of the inventory like area, it will drop it out. We can add that in the future if we want to. So that's just a simple collider script. So after that, so if input get key code Q, then we're going to just say drop item. That's all we need to do. And actually, we actually need to delete this and add an else, because we don't want it to register both of those scripts. So else if this, because otherwise, sorry about that. Otherwise, it will say if, go through this, and then it will say because this isn't true, it'll just go down to else this right here. So that's good. Okay, add the space there. So save that. Now go down here, and what we're going to do in here is basically the same exact thing that's up here, just a little bit different. So first thing, it's going to be game object. As you see above, it's going to be current item. Don't worry, they're not conflicting with each other because they're in separate. They're only referenced in this function, so they're both not conflicting with each other. So you won't be able to grab this this variable and put it in here because they're just referenced in here. You don't reference them at the top, so they're totally fine. Okay. After that, all we need is a for loop. Int I, as you see above, equals 0, then I is less than. Okay, same thing as above. We need to add another game object array. So this is going to be public. This is going to be game object array. And this one's going to be called entities. Okay. So Actually, also what we need to do is we need to grab the player. So public game object player. Okay, perfect. That's all we need up here. So, okay, I was just waiting for that to turn blue. So that's all good. Now what we can do is we can just grab the entities. Entities. There we go. And actually no. Covering that up. So dot length. Okay, and I plus plus. So after that, what we're going to do is we're going to just check if the, actually basically exactly the same. So entities number I dot name is equal. Why is that showing red? Is equal to selected item dot name. Let's see if that turns back. Oh, I know why. Entities. There we go. I'm like wondering why it turns red. I was like, that doesn't look good. So now after that, we're gonna instantiate it. So current item equals game object dot, actually no, instantiate. So this is probably going to be the only spot that's different. So entities and I, and then what we're going to do is we're going to say player position. So player dot transform dot position dot, not a, oh, come on, position. There we go. And now the same thing as before, quaternion, ugh, hard word to say. So quaternion, there we go, dot identity. So since it's crossing over there, I'm just gonna bring it over right there. That's good. Okay, so now that we got that, we need to close it. Dang it. Okay. And now what we need to do is we actually need to set the name. We don't need to set the sorting, so just say the current item dot name equals the selected item dot name. Okay. And now all we need to do is we need to actually delete the item. So actually right here we would set the velocity. You know, actually, even though we set the position up here, we still need to set the position down here because in the future we're going to change the velocity. So I'm just going to say the current item dot position dot transform dot position equals player dot transform dot position. Okay, and that should be good for that. So now we need to just change the so after that's all set, we need to delete it. So just say game object dot capital G game object dot destroy object, and this is going to be the object. So we need to destroy the selected item dot game object, because if we don't destroy it, then it will still be in the inventory. So after we destroy it, we will get it. We will get an error unless we do this. Unless we say the selected item. Selected item equals null, because it'll just say missing item or missing selected item or transform. So we set it to null and it just equals nothing, because that way we'll be able to move around items in the inventory. If we don't set this to nothing, then the inventory will basically be locked up. So we don't want that. We just want to do this, and that's basically all you need to do. So now that we got this, let's see if it works. It should be all fine with errors. No errors, that's good. Actually, we need to do something real quick. So we need to go up, just like before, we need to go up to the inventory and go to project. This is in entities, yep. And we're just gonna drag right here to set entities, drag the copper ingot, and now actually we need to change, grab the player too. So player there. Now we should be able to hit play. All right, we should be able to walk right over, pick it up, and now we will queue it out. There we go. We'll queue out the other one. So if you notice, they actually face the exact same direction. The reason for that is because the velocity is not set. So that's just a future thing we can just fix. Simple, pretty simple. So that's how you drop and pick up objects in Unity 5. I hope you guys liked the episode. Leave a like, subscribe, all that stuff. And I hope to see you guys in a future episode. Thanks for watching. Peace out.